welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
That's excellent, James. So nice to, have you on the show. I love our discussions, and I know our viewers will get a lot of gold from your commentary. So I'm really pleased that you're here. James, for folks who may not be familiar with you, if you could please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background, what you're doing right now.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is James Melucci. I am the Director of Shopper Insights at Beam Suntory. I have a pretty varied background in operations, sales, supply chain management, kind of been a jack of all trades in my history, but my real passion is in the kind of insight space. And that's what brought me here to Beam Suntory. And for folks that may not be familiar with Beam Suntory was formed in 2014 by combining the world leader in bourbon, Beam Global, and the pioneer in Japanese whiskey, Suntory, to really form this new company. So today, Beam Suntory is known as the world leader in premium spirits. Even if you didn't realize it, right, you probably know many of our brands, such as Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, Basil Hayden, and Knob Creek bourbons. But, we also produce Hornito, Salsa, and Trace Generations tequila, as well as on the rocks, premium cocktails, and many other spirits. Just a little touch on our company too, in terms of our culture, because I feel like this is always super important when we're given a platform like this. We like to say Beam Suntory is a place where you can kind of come and, unleash your spirit is how we call it. We want every person to feel welcome and valued for what they bring to the table here. And we want our people to kind of have the opportunity to really unlock their potential, try new things, such as this, such as a podcast, things like this. And, really make the mark on the organization. And that's what really brought me here kind of as, the next step in my career.
Wonderful, James, and thank you for that. I'm sure there are a lot of fans in the audience for the company and the product. So great to have you here. And I think we'll have a great discussion. And, James, the reason we really wanted you to be on the show as well is because of your rich and diverse background. You've had such fantastic experiences. So I really wanted folks to get the benefit of that. So as we get started, James, in your current role, especially leading some of these premium brands, some very well-known brands, when you think about your leadership, your management, when they come to you and they say, great job, what are they typically counting on you for?
For sure. I think first and foremost, really, it's all about the customer. That really drives our decisions. That's our North Star. It's all about the customer for us. So what we are really doing from my perspective, right, when we get told we're doing a great job, we're providing thought leadership, we're providing distinct insights, we're providing a very creative perspective for our partners, whether it be internal, right, that we need to deliver for, or external. We try to be as brand agnostic when we can to be in that thought leadership space, but also understand at times, right, we are in the business of selling, right? So we do need to have a position on where our brands play and how we can help the customer drive their business with the brands that we have in our portfolio. That's
a lot of responsibility, right? And so when you are, I love that you are focused on the customer, that is the company culture. And when you're guiding your shopper teams, your category teams, your brand teams to remain focused on the customer, can you talk a little bit about how you do that, how you ensure that you are fulfilling the demands that these different stakeholders put on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say it is a team effort, 100%, right? I have a great team of folks behind me here at Beam Suntory that are just, knocking it out of the park for us. So my role is really, providing any kind of leadership from that perspective and really guiding them, but I have a great team of folks that do a lot of that work. And when I say the work, right, and just to unpack that a bit, we really have teams that are focused on our off-premise customers. So, retail, things like that. We have folks on the team that are focused on the on-premise. So really understanding what's happening in that space, with guests, what they're coming in for, what they're asking for. As we know, at least pre-COVID, a lot of those decisions in the on-premise started to influence off-premise, right? That's a traditional model that we saw. And we saw that get turned a little bit upside down during COVID when obviously a lot of places were closed. So folks kind of became their home bartender. And we've been trying to understand that transition, what's happening now that things have opened back up. Is that here to stay? And a lot of that, we leverage some of the great partnerships we have across, some of the key data partners to really start to understand that A lot of what we do is understanding purchase journey, path to purchase. And with my team being really focused on shopper, a big part of the responsibility we have is understanding what's happening between inside the four walls of the consumer and the retailer, whether that be in an off-premise retail environment or in an on-premise operator.
That's interesting, James, because you're right. The pandemic sort of changed the game, and
Yes.
now the game's changing again,
Yes.
with things opening back up. Let's dive into this for a minute. So from your perspective, when you are helping internal teams and leadership really understand these changing journeys from the shopper's perspective, as well as, how your different partners are, the role that they're partaking in this. Can you help our viewers understand who may be embarking on similar shopper journeys? How do you go about it? What are, some of the best practices you deploy? What are the challenges you come up against? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
I'd say for us, on the path to purchase or purchase journeys, right, we've been on, I think a lot of it is doing a lot of the groundwork internally, working with key stakeholders internally to really get a variety of opinions before we go to launch with anything, right? I think what we're really trying to understand is, are we asking all the right questions? From past experience, right, I'm sure most folks can speak to this. You go through these and then you always think, oh man, I wish I could have asked that, or should have asked the question this way. So we try to work with a group of subject matter experts internally, and then obviously look for that in terms of partnership and who we work with as well in that space, just to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck out of it. And really asking the questions and mixing up the questions to really get not just canned responses, but also getting open-ended responses. Because I think some of those open-ended responses we get are usually the better part, right? Or they really help us tell the story with those verbatims and help us build a more robust presentation as we go through, when you can have kind of voice of the consumer, voice of the shopper in those, right? Because those are really telling, right? When you're hearing it from the source. I think some of the challenges we run into, I think, are some of the same things I just mentioned, right? Did we ask all the right questions? Did we position questions in the right way? Or was there some kind of, bias that we had as we went into that influenced how that answer came back to us? So we try to really vet those amongst the team and get opinions. Like I said, not just from internal, but also external stakeholders that we're doing this work with, to ensure we're getting the most value out of our, investment in that space.
Yeah, great points, James. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
This is a common theme that I often see in our practice as well, where, especially when it comes to these shopper journey or paths to purchase projects, or projects that are focused on enhancing the customer's experience, I often see a lot of even senior leaders sometimes get entangled in, let's not miss out on a key question, right? There's always that fear. And what I like to guide our clients on is, first of all, in setting the bar straight, which is, and this was something one of my mentors shared with me several eons ago that I still remembered, and I shared, which is, don't expect one research project to remove all your confusion, but expect one research project to elevate your confusion to the next level, right? So that's the caveat we begin with, right? That's the foundation. Now, having said that, one experience shared that I do want to give to our viewers, James, you're probably aware of this already, but something that I want to share with folks is, when you are challenged with multiple stakeholders that have, everything is important to them, and you're trying to stay on course, the best way to do that I have seen work for a lot of other clients, is understand very clearly up front, why are we doing this project? What is the business impact that we are trying to make? Is it improved customer experience? Is it increased sales at the retail level? Is it increased sales in an omni-channel environment? Is it increased, enhanced NPS scores? Whatever that business objective is, understand that very, very clearly. And then what we recommend as a best practice that we've seen working for a lot of folks is take it to the next level. Understand what the financial impact of that business outcome is. So if we are looking to increase sales, well, how much? 10%, 15%? What does that mean in dollars? If we're looking to enhance NPS scores, well, what does that mean in dollars? Well, if our NPS goes up, loyalty goes up, we should expect sales to increase. We should expect brand switching to fall, and that in turn should have an X% effect on the bottom line, right? Be very clear on that financial impact. And then the third thing is, and before I talk about the third thing, the financial impact, as you know, James, is so critical because that's what matters when you're sitting at the C-suite level. That's what matters when you're sitting with your channel partners, right? On why do we do this? How does it move the needle, right?
We often talk size of price, not to interrupt you, but yes, try to definitely understand that, right? And then compare that to the spend and understanding, right? Like, are we getting the most bang for the buck out of this? Does this make sense, right? Having that gut check along the way is certainly important, right? And stakeholders want to understand that as well.
Correct. Because as you know, James, and we've all been there, it's like, when research budgets are tight and every dollar, and that's always the case. I have yet to
not say budgets are finite.
Correct. I have yet to, in 2 decades of being in this business, I've yet to find a client or a company that says, I have unlimited research budget, go do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, I haven't run across one of those companies yet either myself. So yeah.
Correct.
Align with you.
Correct. So, so that's just an experience share for folks that if you're able to tie it into a financial impact and a strong business impact, that also becomes like your North Star on, do we really need to ask this question? Is it more like a nice to have? Does it help us achieve that particular financial goal or business goal that we had set out? Something else that I also want to share with our viewers, James, and please do jump in and comment on this if you think it makes sense. But something that I also like is, especially at the path to purchase, at the shopper journey level, where these projects are so strategic and they impact so many different departments or teams. I like people to talk about personal impact as well. How does the success or failure of this impact you personally? I'll do a quick experience share. Earlier on when we started doing journey and path to purchase projects, we would just jump into it. And then sometimes we would come across situations where people would be like, I already knew that. You guys spent all that investment time and we already knew that, right? And you're like, that's not right. We need to build on internal knowledge. And so we started doing these workshops before we did any research. And those became so valuable to our clients, James, because what would happen is people would get up in these journey workshop sessions that were being executed prior to the research. And people would get up and say, well, it's interesting you say this. I've always viewed this particular phase of the customer's journey as this. And then somebody else from another department would get up and say, well, now that you say that, I always thought they were asking this from us because they needed X, right? And it almost becomes like a team building exercise. For us as researchers, it was like, aha, here are the gaps in your understanding.
Yeah, no, I think for us too, right? I have partners across the organization in terms of, my team is focused on shopper, but then I have a peer that is, on the consumer side, and then we have some insights and analytics. And so we have a good variety of opinions, and those folks are often involved with us, even if it isn't project specific for their area, just to bring that, that breadth of knowledge and that difference of experience and opinion. Just again, so we're vetting those type of things to really understand Because it is easy, right, as you mentioned, to kind of get into that tunnel vision. Here's what I'm looking to solve for. I'm dead set on it. Here's my hypothesis. I want to go test. And then as you start to talk to other folks, right, they bring different perspectives, and there's definitely some aha moments there, which are good to discover upfront, right, before you make an investment and go down the path. So that's a critical part of our internal journey, right? I'll say, as we kind of get to these, and even before we pull the trigger on doing anything, we certainly look to have those kind of group discussions, right? Like similarly to what you mentioned.
Right, right. No, thank you. I'm really glad that you concur with that.
Yeah, I do. I think you mentioned a couple other things too that are interesting, right? We often, can get caught up in great getting in the way of good, right? As you mentioned, this journey is going to be the end all be all. It's going to answer every question. And it's really good to kind of temper expectations. And that comes with folks that are experienced, right, on the team that can provide that perspective and kind of talk back from that and say, okay, right, we probably know that this is one layer of the onion and it's going to lead to more, as opposed to it being, the end all be all of answers. So certainly we try to bring that perspective. And again, that's from, time and experience of folks that have been in this space to really understand that and help explain that to others that may be a little bit new to it or just, have a higher expectation of what's going to come out of it.
Right, right. No, thank you. That's so valuable. And thank you for sharing that. So James, what I wanted to do now was I wanted to dive into a specific example or a paths to purchase or a journey project that you feel comfortable talking about. It can be at your current role or at a prior role. But can you just help our viewers understand what made you realize that a paths to purchase or a shopper journey, there was a need to do this, how you went about it, and then more importantly, what was the impact or end result for your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about an example here from Beam Suntory. And, while I can't reveal everything that's in the pipeline, I can, kind of give you some overall thoughts on it. And, the big topic for us that we recently just kind of dove into to understand more is non-alcoholic beverage space. And really where that came from is myself and my folks on my team, right? We're really all kind of students of insights. So even if we're not working, we still have a passion to kind of understand what's happening in the business. The team does a lot of, keeping on top of news that's out there, stories that come through, going in the market, to really the place of action, right? Which we call Gemba here at Beam Suntory. And we encourage folks to do that, right? To learn and what's happening in the place of where it's happening, right? In the marketplace. And I think through that, we've learned, right? Non-alcoholic beverages are continuing to grow, right? And really gain space at the shelf, which is obviously, a challenge for us, right? Space is finite at the shelf, especially, in the kind of spirits business or bev alc business where you're across, spirits and beer and wine and all those types of things. So we began to see more non-alc spirits, particularly start to gain space and momentum. Coming out of extensions of things like, sober January, sober October, and just overall moderation seems to be some of the themes that are starting to pop with some of the younger generations, right? Versus some of the older generations. So certainly it kind of begged kind of the question of really trying to understand what's happening in this space. And that's usually how it comes up for us, right? Things kind of happen organically. You just start hearing a lot of things in the news, or you start seeing a lot of things happening at the shelf, and then that usually bubbles up, and that's how we start to begin okay. And we have customers obviously asking about, right, where is this going? So that really started to drive us trying to understand that journey, and knowing that, low alc, no alc beer has been around for, since the 70s or so. But really we're starting to see spirits start to gain more in that space. And, if you go out to conferences or things like that, there's usually a breakout session on that, or there's some vendors out there that are making that product and testing it out. So it really begged for us to understand that, right? I guess is my overall kind of, response to you on that. And what that did then was drive us to really start looking at a purchase journey on, who is that buyer today, right? And how do they go about going to market? What are they looking for? our brand's interchangeable. So if I go into my local retailer today and, I look for brand X, is it not there? Am I going to walk away? Am I going to go somewhere else? Or, how willing am I to change that, right? Or flip on that? How important is that to me? Why am I buying, right? Really trying to understand the why behind the buy, knowing that some of our anecdotal research, right, tells us that moderation is becoming a trend, right? Like I said, in younger generations, but want to test that hypothesis, right? Really understand that of who the demographics of that buyer look like today as well. So that really started to take us on a journey to understand that. Again, a lot of our customers are looking for us to provide that thought leadership, right? Where does that go for them? Obviously, for us as a company, right? Folks are asking, what is Beam Suntory doing in that space? Again, that's kind of the part that's the R&D pipeline for us, and I can't speak to too much here, but we are certainly aware of it. We're certainly looking at it, and we are certainly looking to understand who that customer is and really what appeals to them. Right? We know obviously we have mountains and mountains of research of why full alcohol spirits, right, and across our portfolio and our categories, and understand why they hit with customers. What we are looking to understand more is what's the motivation behind the purchase. And then what is bringing you in and what's your frequency and all those types of things that we know today about full alcohol spirits, but that we're learning, and right. And it's a growing category. So it's distinct today, but it's rapidly growing when you look at some of the growth rates in that. Certainly, triple digits in that space. And I think COVID has potentially caused a lot of folks to think about how they moderate as well. So there's a lot of different factors. It's a little bit of a brave new world in that space. And it's a great time for us to kind of level set and get some understanding of who that customer is and who that shopper is.
Right. So, James, that's a great example. It outlined really clear motivation for you to set out on this journey to better understand the shoppers' behaviors and their drivers.
So I will mention, and just to answer the last part of your question, right? We
Sure.
have just started to pull together some of this research. So my team and I, right, are working on packaging this up and being able to tell a category story, right, of what's happening with it, and really bringing that to our partners in the field and helping them understand, like I said, a lot of those factors in this space. Who's drinking it? Why are they drinking it? Right? Kind of, what I joke around and say is the 4W, 1H, the who, what, where, when, how, and why. Of what folks are doing in the space, because it is a little bit new. It's a little bit of a threat when you talk about shelf space and interchangeability, or understanding if there is between maybe I drink a full alcohol spirit on weekends to kind of unwind, right, and take it easy, and I during the week I try to moderate, so that's why I drink a non-alc version of a bourbon during the week, because I need to moderate, right? And trying to understand who that customer is. If it's really someone that does it on weekends and doesn't during the week, or is it truly like someone that's just fully into that space? And I think there's probably a variety of customers, right? There's not just one silver bullet in that space, but it is trying to understand who the major category buyers are, right? And what's happening with them. So we look forward to bringing this out, I guess is my point, right? We really haven't shown it to customers yet because it is that new. But really working on building a holistic story that obviously includes a push for where Beam Suntory can play in that space, but also providing just some thought leadership on what's happening in that category and breaking apart the subcategories within the total, non-alc beverage space.
And, right there, I think that's a great example, James. And what I want our viewers to pay attention to is your use of the words thought leadership, because folks that do this type of journey mapping, path to purchase work, become thought leaders, or they are seen as thought leaders, within the industry. And we have sat in so many retailer meetings where I can share with our viewers that when you are looking at the customer and the shopper holistically with the insights that come from the type of work that James is talking about, then what you're really helping your channel partners also understand is not just what's going on in that category, but also how they can benefit or how they can be uh, benefiting from these insights. And on the softer side, what this really helps, or what we've seen this do for a lot of our clients or a lot of folks that leverage these tools and techniques, is uh, you get to be seen as the champion in that category, where you have your channel partners really deferring to you on what's really going on with the shopper. You come across as having the pulse of behaviors of what's going on with the shopper, and I'm sure, James, you must be doing this. But what I've seen others do also is, uh, when they start looking at shopper level insights, especially from a path to purchase perspective, then the more savvy researchers also start slicing it by channel, by retailer, by partner. And then when you start talking about insights at that granular level, now all of a sudden you have your partner, that retailer, that channel partners at full attention, because now you're talking about their customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's a great strategy for us, right? I call it first mover advantage, right? Or at least borrow that term to use in this space. If we can come to our partners first with that, then right, we're seen as that trusted partner because we got there first with them. I also think it's a bit disarming for them when we come in from a thought leadership perspective, as opposed to just looking for reasons to push our brands or push things on the shelf specifically, right? So I think the approach in that space, right, and really coming as that partner versus, hey, I'm just trying to sell you another, 9 liters, really changes the relationship for us, right? It really works to build that partnership and take our relationship obviously from transactional to more of that partnership space. The biggest compliment we can get when we go in for meetings with customers, whether it's, RFPs or quarterly business reviews or top to tops, is when they come back and say, hey, we'd love to have you come back and do more of an insights deep dive with us or more of an insights summit. Because that really speaks to what we were able to do in that meeting in a brief amount of time, right? Where we may be parsed off with a little bit of insights, a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, and bringing folks to the, recognize that, hey, we need to work with you more in a shopper space, right? And really blow out that part of it. We love to do that. And we're always willing to do that with customers that want to give us the opportunity to, because I think it's a great piece that, when we're left to do that as the kind of sole person in the meeting, we can really get a peek behind the curtain a little bit further and really impact some of the ability of our team to do that. And again, right, speaks to more thought leadership, right? Again, like we're happy to be partners with our customers in terms of tools and things we've built and research we've done. You just need the time to kind of build that out. So when we have those separate breakout sessions or they ask for them, that's the part we really love because we get to really showcase what we're able to do.
That's wonderful, James. I couldn't have said it better myself. And, that's why I wanted to double click on that a bit.
Sure.
For all our viewers that have never embarked on the type of shopper journey work or path to purchase work that James specializes in, I would like you to take away this as a key benefit. Because if you can transition from being just another vendor or merchandiser for one of your channel partners, and if they start viewing you more as a guide, as a thought leader, and that is one of the key benefits of doing this type of holistic work, then you'll find that it really takes your partnership from a transactional standpoint to more of being a trusted guide. And that is really the sweet spot you want to be in, especially when we're all competing for shelf space. So thank you, James. I think that right there was gold. I know we're almost at the end of our time, but I did want to ask you one final question, James, and which was, I know you're very thorough with your approaches. You've been doing this for a while, but having to come to know you, I also know that you're a perfectionist in some ways. And reflecting on this particular project, even though I know this will have a great impact on the company. This will help uncover some of the, this will provide guidance and clarity on issues that the organization does not have, especially when it comes to these new personas and these new customers. In hindsight, if you had to go do this again, or if you had to do another path to purchase project, is there anything different or any improvement that you would make or do as you reflect on this one?
Sure. I think reflecting on this specific one, I think even for others, for us, we always want to ask more questions, right? Always get excited, and we have to talk ourselves back a bit, right? Because you do have to kind of take the perspective of the person that has to go through this survey, right, for you, whether it's a consumer or shopper, whatever it is, their capacity to interpret and answer so many questions for you, right? Because the last thing you want to do is put too many questions in front of someone, and then they're just flying through them, right? Either to get their stipend or whatever they are getting, right, for taking the survey. So there's a balance there, but I mean, us as kind of insights professionals, right? You get kind of caught up in the excitement of, well, yeah, let's ask this, and like we want to know this, and we want to know this, and I think it's going back and trying to understand, like, is there a way to ask questions a way where you'll get the intended result without having to ask, 3 similar questions, right? So I think word structure, how you're presenting it, right? And again, we're no experts in that space, right? We work with trusted partners on that to do that. We're humble enough to say that, right? We have an opinion on it, but we certainly work with trusted partners to understand that, because we do want to get, when you're talking about either, right, you're paying in dollars or survey credits or whatever it is, we do want to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck, but we want to do that in a way where we're not inundating the end user, right, with a ton of questions and forcing them into a space where they're just kind of rapid fire through it. We want to get broad, robust answers from them. So I think that's a learning, right? Kind of how and it's an art, not a science, right? You're trying to balance how many is the right number. But at the same time, you want to make sure you get the final deliverable so that you don't have any kind of, regrets at the end, right? That you didn't ask the things you wanted. Like I said, I love open-ended questions. I'm happy with canned responses. I think they do a great piece for us. I just love hearing open-ended questions because it feels like the person is then kind of talking to us more than just being forced into a box. So I love a good mix of those, especially with certain topical areas that you're really trying to understand a little bit of a deeper dive on, that a canned answer can't do it, or you come back with too many responses, right, if you give them too many options to choose from. So I love open-ended questions. I love hearing from folks if we can't talk to them live, obviously, doing it through a survey. And I feel like those are the most telling, right? Those are where the real people tell their truth, and that they tell their story, and that really comes through for us. And they make great sound bites, right? For, like I said, for verbatims and when we package up research and we present it, I think those really help to say, hey, here's a true person's opinion versus, I gave them 4 options to choose from. So it's about finding the right mix. Like I said, it's an art, not a science, but I think for us, as we continue to do these purchase journeys and learn more, it's always trying to find the right mix of those type of questions and just total overall quantity. So as we're not, like I said, inundating someone that has to sit through this and do it for you.
Thank you. Thank you for your transparency, James. I appreciate it. And, for our viewers who may have similar challenges as well, what I have seen work for others is the same things that we talked about, which is tying it into the business impact and the financial impact. And if there is still confusion on the types of questions or the clarity, tie it into the personal impact of the different stakeholders. Will this help us make and achieve what we set out to do? And will it make our partners happy? Will it give them the information that they were seeking? Or if there needs to be a trade-off, what is the happy medium for that? But these are all pressing challenges, James. And if you, as an expert, sometimes struggle with these, I want viewers to take note from that grace and note that this happens to the best of us. And this will continue to happen as we try to improve.
Scope creep is real, right?
Yes.
That's what we always kind of talk about, right?
Yeah.
You can ask so many questions and things can spiral out of times, and you really have to bring yourself back, right? Say, is this in the scope? Is this leading us to what we truly intended to do when we started out this project, like you said, right? Using that North Star
Right.
is tremendously important. And it's always good to have folks on the team that are there to do that check, right? Say, time out, like, are we still on the path we want to be? Let's evaluate and make sure that we are, right? Before we, again, try to be all things to all people, right? With a survey.
Correct. Wonderful, James. And with that, we are at the end of our interview. Thank you so much again for your time. I think folks will get a lot of gold from this interview. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Have a great afternoon.